The storm had swallowed the entire city in a roar of heavy rain and restless wind, the kind that seemed to drive everyone indoors and erase all signs of life from the streets. Against that violent backdrop, a lone young woman struggled up the steep driveway of a hilltop mansion, her soaked clothes clinging to her trembling body as she clutched a small backpack that offered little protection from the downpour. She had walked miles after her car died on the highway, the storm worsening by the minute, until she reached the gated property she recognized from news articles and business magazines, the enviable residence of Adrian Hale, the reclusive CEO known for his brilliance, power, and intimidating presence. With numb fingers, she pressed the intercom button and prayed someone would answer. After several agonizing moments, a deep, composed voice finally emerged through the speaker, unmistakably his. "Who is it?" Her voice wavered as she replied, "My car broke down. I'm sorry, I just need a place to wait out the storm." "Even your porch would be enough." She expected rejection, maybe even silence. Instead, the iron gates unlocked with a heavy metallic groan, and his voice returned, gentler this time, "Come inside. You shouldn't be in weather like this." She stared, stunned, then whispered her thanks as she stepped forward, the storm closing behind her like a door she was desperate to escape. 2. The driveway felt impossibly long as she approached the grand mansion glowing warmly against the dark sky. She hesitated at the front steps, uncertain if she should knock or simply wait, but before she could decide, the massive oak door swung open. Adrian Hale himself stood there, tall and striking even in the dim entryway light. His tailored suit was gone, replaced by a simple charcoal sweater that somehow made him look more human, less like the distant figure she'd only seen in interviews. He looked at her, really looked at her, with an expression not of suspicion but of concern. "You're drenched," he said quietly, stepping aside. "Come in before you fall ill." She entered hesitantly, water pooling beneath her as she shivered uncontrollably. The warmth of the foyer washed over her like a blanket, and she realized how close she had been to collapsing. Adrian closed the door behind her with calm assurance, as though sheltering strangers during a storm was perfectly ordinary. "Let me get you a towel," he said before she could speak. She nodded, unable to form words as she processed the unlikely kindness of a man whose world was far removed from hers. 3. He returned moments later with a thick towel and a soft blanket, both of which she accepted with shaky hands. "Thank you," she whispered, embarrassed by how small and helpless she felt. Adrian gestured toward a nearby bench. "Sit," he instructed gently. She obeyed, wrapping the blanket tightly around herself. From up close, she noticed he had an aura of quiet authority, imposing, yes, but also unexpectedly protective. "How long were you out in the storm?" he asked. She explained in broken sentences about her car failing, the nearest gas station being closed, and deciding to walk despite the danger. Adrian listened without interruption, his brows tightening with concern. "You should have been helped," he murmured finally. "No one should be stranded in weather like this." His words surprised her, compassion from a man known for being ruthlessly efficient in the corporate world. He motioned toward a side hallway. "There's a guest bathroom where you can dry off. I'll make something warm for you to drink." She blinked, unsure if she heard him correctly. The CEO was going to make her something. But his tone left no room for doubt. She rose slowly, feeling lighter than she had all night, and followed the direction he'd pointed, her heart still pounding from both fear and relief. 4. Inside the guest bathroom, she saw a neatly arranged set of toiletries, fresh towels, and even a spare robe hanging on the door, as if the room had been prepared long before she arrived. She dried herself with trembling hands, changed into the robe, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. She looked exhausted, fragile, and utterly out of place in a mansion like this. 1,000 worries filled her mind. What if she was imposing? What if this was a mistake? What if the man downstairs regretted letting her in? But when she stepped back into the hallway, the warm scent of something soothing drifted toward her, dissolving some of her panic. Adrian stood near the fireplace in the living room, pouring hot tea into a porcelain cup. When he turned and saw her, he gave a small nod of approval. "Better," he said. She felt heat rise to her cheeks at his calm acknowledgement. He handed her the cup, his fingers brushing hers briefly, warm and steady. "Drink," he murmured. "You're safe now." The words slipped into her heart like light breaking through storm clouds. 5. They sat across from each other in the expansive living room, the crackling fire casting soft glows along the shelves lined with books and rare artifacts. She sipped the tea slowly, letting the warmth seep into her very bones. Adrian watched her with a thoughtful expression, his posture relaxed yet attentive. "You don't have to tell me everything," he said quietly, "but I'd like to know if there's anyone you need to contact." She shook her head. "No. No one's expecting me tonight." There was a faint sadness in her voice, one she couldn't hide. Adrian picked up on it immediately, his eyes softening. "You shouldn't be alone in a storm. Not in life either," he said, almost as if speaking to himself. She looked at him, surprised. For a man rumored to be cold and unreachable, he seemed to carry a surprising depth of loneliness. He noticed her curiosity and offered a faint, almost shy smile, a contrast to his commanding public image. "People assume success means company," he explained. "They're wrong." She nodded slowly, realizing they shared more aloneness than she imagined. 6. Gradually, the conversation eased into something warmer, gentler. She told him fragments about her life. Her small apartment, her long work hours, her dreams often shelved because survival always came first. Adrian listened with the intensity of someone unused to genuine connection yet deeply hungry for it. He shared pieces of his own story, surprising her with his honesty. "My world is loud but empty," he admitted. "People follow orders, not truth. They come to me for what I can give, not who I am." She felt a strange ache in her chest at his confession. She never expected to hear vulnerability from a man of his stature, but now it made sense. Why his mansion, despite its size and beauty, felt so quiet, so untouched. The storm outside continued to batter the windows, but inside, a different kind of warmth grew between them, an unspoken understanding, a quiet recognition of two very different lives intersecting in the gentlest possible way. 7. Hours slipped by without either of them noticing. Adrian ensured she finished the tea before offering her a plate of warm food, insisting she needed strength after the long ordeal. She protested weakly, but he shook his head with a firmness softened by concern. "You don't refuse care when you desperately need it," he said. The way he spoke felt not like authority, but like someone who had learned that lesson far too late in life. As she ate, he draped a soft blanket around her shoulders, the gesture so unexpectedly tender that her eyes stung with emotion. "Why are you being so kind?" she whispered before she could stop herself. Adrian paused, his gaze steady. "Because kindness is rare in the world I live in. And because," he hesitated, searching for the right words, "you knocked on my door instead of giving up. That deserves something." She looked at him, stunned by his sincerity. The storm thundered outside, but inside she felt sheltered in ways she hadn't felt in years. 8. When she finished eating, Adrian noticed her eyelids growing heavy. "You're exhausted," he said softly. "You should rest." She nodded, but a flicker of worry crossed her face. "I don't want to inconvenience you." His response was immediate and gentle. Sheltering someone isn't an inconvenience. Closing the door on them would be. Her breath caught at his words. He led her down a quiet hallway to a beautifully furnished guest room. Soft lamplight glowed against fresh linens and warm blankets, creating a haven that felt almost unreal. "If you need anything at all, just knock," he said, pausing at the doorway. She murmured another thank you, overwhelmed by the kindness she'd received. Before turning to leave, he added quietly, "You're safe here." Something in his tone made her believe it completely. 9. Left alone, she settled into the warmth of the room, allowing her body to relax for the first time in hours. The storm still rumbled beyond the walls, but it no longer felt threatening. She lay back on the pillows, staring at the ceiling as she replayed the evening in her mind. The fear, the cold, the desperation, and then the unexpected compassion of a man she had only known through headlines. She wondered why he had opened his gates so readily, why he had offered not just shelter but comfort. Something about his eyes, steady, earnest, quietly aching, lingered in her thoughts. Before sleep finally claimed her, she whispered a soft, grateful hope into the darkness, that she might one day repay his kindness, even if only with the honesty he seemed to crave. 10. Meanwhile, Adrian stood alone in the hallway outside the guest room, listening to the quiet hum of the storm as it slowly began to fade. He rested a hand lightly against the wall, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For years, he had built a fortress around himself. Gates, guards, stone walls, and emotional barriers no one could breach. Yet tonight, a soaked, shivering stranger had knocked, and something inside him had shifted. He wasn't sure why he opened the gates, why he felt drawn to protect her, or why her presence softened a loneliness he'd stopped acknowledging. But he knew one thing: closing the gate on her would have been a greater storm than the one raging outside. As he walked away from the door, he felt, for the first time in a long while, that maybe letting someone in wasn't a weakness, but a small, quiet beginning. And in that vast, silent mansion, her arrival left behind a warmth that promised tomorrow would not feel as empty as yesterday.